The 9 races, the peoples that have come to inhabit Terminus, are often referred to in this way. Yet, this is false, for one is omitted. Not human, halfling, elf, scar, ogre, darkmer, archai, gnome, or dwarf, the playable races of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, the upcoming MMORPG by Visionary Realms. No, this race stands apart from those in both their legacy and what is to come. I speak of the Ginto, and their tale, one of 2 powers, is one worthy of telling. At first glance, the arrival of the races on Terminus seems evenly split into 3 windows in time. The dwarves, elves, and ogres arriving first in the years 7, 9, and 12 IH, respectively. Next, the Archai and Darkmer, nearly simultaneously in 450 IH, and the humans shortly thereafter in 459. And lastly, the halflings, scar, and gnomes, one after another, in the years 620, 621, and 622 IH, 3 significant periods of the population of Terminus increasing. Yet, the Ginto are not accounted for. But the impact of their arrival can't be understated. The lore notes, in 450 IH, the 3rd era of collisions began, critically starting with the aforementioned Ginto. So we can see the Ginto arrive the same year as the Archai and the Darkmer, which is curious, but more on that later. Unlike the other races, Terminus was not a refuge for the Ginto people. The lore tells us, at the time of their arrival, their infinite union was already crippled. The infinite union refers to the 2 deities of the race, a wedded pair by the name of Itero and Janavi, the husband king and bride queen, respectively, as the lore refers to them. In Pantheon lore, many of the deities of Terminus are but parts of a pantheon of gods, some with notable relationships. The dwarves have their triumvirate of balance in Causus, Rozek, and Lockenhammer. The humans' holy tome, the Book of the Availoth, names the 5 of virtue and 5 of contempt. The Scar have their 9 hates. All distinct, yet all pantheons greater than one. This was commented on by J.N. Gerhardt, lead writer for Visionary Realms, when he stated, "The Ginto are a very unique race. Their relationship to everyone else is different." Although only 2, this infinite union wielded great power. We know little of their history or nature before arriving on Terminus. The lore notes, Itero had been exposed to a vast force of destructive power beyond even his control at some point just prior to their arrival. It's described by Semina, a high priest of the Ginto, as an eyeless face of an eclipse as it bore down upon my world, crowned in the dust of those it had already turned to nothing. In witnessing Itero's devastation, Semina states, "I have felt the hands of my pantheon torn in 2, witnessed that cosmic power grip the very god I worshipped with indifference, withering him to a dead husk." And with that, the destruction of the Ginto home planet, the name which is notably mentioned nowhere in the published lore. Semina observes, "The ground beneath my feet splintered as my own planet's invincible beauty was crushed by an unseen hand." Who or what this vast force is exactly is cleverly obscured in the published lore. The topic was brought up by the community in an interview with Jan Gerhardt on the Voices of Terminus show, when Jan was asked, what or who ultimately corrupted Itero? Was it before they came to Terminus? And as a good writer does, Jan kept the secret to himself when he replied, "That can't be commented on, it's too important." Yet, if we recall, the Ginto arrived the same year as the Archai and the Darkmer. Their tales provide our best clue to what this vast force was. With the Darkmer, witnesses noted, "For there he stood, far above us, hovering in the sky. A thing unlike I had imagined before. A creature who may have never been made. High in the air he watched us writhe, the strange salvation of air filtering through our quivering bodies, heaving out the poisonous liquid of Terminus's oceans. That thing we call Ermos. He and his world Terminus gouged us of all we love, turning even the waters against us." And then we look to the Archive story as well, and we note how they were torn from the ancient crystalline planet of Roa. The Archive were originally created from another race of pure magical energy called the Aoen. These innocent beings were tragically deconstructed and recomposed by the vile followers of Roa's dark celestial lord. Both malevolent forces that sought to enslave the race or deprive them of their power, a commonality that can't be dismissed. Another aspect the deities of Terminus share is a power known as dissension. In short, the sacrifice of one's godhood to have a more direct hand in the affairs of their people. Causus rules his dwarves as a high mortal king. Cyrenai descended to allow her Darkmer to survive, and Osari to destroy his human kin. Janavi also made this choice, only hers was Itero's dissension to save him from what corruption he endured. The lore notes, Itero was led to suffer from his ethereal wounds like any common creature riddled with disease. Furthermore, the once glorious and benevolent captain of the Infinite Union became a gross and twisted half-god full of violent darkness. And with this enmity and the mysterious power that began his transformation, Itero began to raise an army of warriors twisted in his own malevolent form, from members of the plentiful Ginto race he had so long loved and prospered. These would become known as the Revenant, and Itero, their ravaging lord. The bride queen realized her husband king was lost, yet the peoples of Terminus were not. As such, Janavi sacrificed herself to imbue the few remaining undefiled Ginto with her power, transforming them into a second, new race, immune to the effects of their ravaging lord and his revenant. These are known as the Remnant, zealous, pious warriors of exceptional abilities with an unyielding appetite to exterminate the revenant. J.N. Gerhardt commented on this outcome, noting the Ginto were splintered into two new races from one, two forces in direct opposition to each other. This celestial division would form the conflict that would engulf Terminus in a war of the gods. But perhaps their infinite union was not entirely lost. The lore notes, legend says a lone flicker of Janavi's sacrifice flew true and buried itself into the chest of the ravaging lord. This suggests that the eyeless face of the eclipse was prevented from fully corrupting Itero as intended, and therefore its purpose remains unfulfilled. This is commented on by Semina, the aforementioned High Priest of the Infinite Union, and last remaining member of the Ginto race. He notes, this world is filled with those it did not claim, preserved by an unseen hand, perhaps at great risk. A pattern of incomplete corruption amongst the races, if you will. Speaking of incomplete, there's much we don't know about the Ginto, practically speaking. The published lore includes only Chapter 1 of the last Ginto's confession. This has been confirmed by J.N. Gerhardt, who stated that Semina wrote one of the 4 works we've got, and is one of the last Ginto. So not only are there likely more chapters to his confession, but other authors who have accounts of the Ginto on Terminus. One of these may be the Keepings of Castigu. While not confirmed, this may provide a physical description of the Ginto. In its pages, we find the following excerpt from Narian Castigu as he comes across the remains of a race unfamiliar to him. He notes, "As I stood, I saw the bodies, 3 of them, split open in various ways, and one severed cleanly in half. These creatures looked human, but yet strangely withered, like all water had been drained out of their corpse. Their armor was light, weapons heinous yet sleek. Their arms and legs bore wrappings of wet cloth." And perhaps even Itero in his corrupted state, as Causus spies a lone figure he dubs the Ill Watcher. Narian comments, "In his face burned 2 eyes of black flame, but with a tainted, greenish hue, indeed giving the color of a pale, ill appearance. He spoke a word that started like a whisper, but ended in a scream." Causus states, "The Ill Watcher has seen all of this." Where might we find the Ginto in present-day Terminus? Narian Castigu noted at the time of the journey, we had planned an expedition to the east once the snow thaws. Our aim was to reach the tribes of Ginto. I'm referring to the Remnant. It is a dimming hope. Our most recent reports of their settlements are nearly 3 years old, and they seem a reclusive order, focused on the realms even further east. Narion composed this in the year 473 IH, during the height of the Deicide War, so while this doesn't speak to their fate, it does give us an idea of where they may reside. Seek out realms further east, such as the Vale of Azarus, and perhaps you may meet these tribes. Or maybe Semina really is the last of the Ginto people, and that is who awaits us there. The Ginto play a central role in the lore of Terminus. What we know is intriguing, but what we don't, even more so. Those that seek this knowledge will be edging ever closer to some of the most closely guarded secrets in Pantheon. Until next time, cheers, and thanks for watching.